And now the shipping forecast issued by the Met Office on behalf of the Maritime and Coast Guard Agency at 1130. Go! At 1130.
I don't think I've ever wanted to be in a stand more than my life around there. They're going crazy. Hey, they got penalty here. There'll be fish flying about that. There's no tomorrow.
What a magnificent piece of football! A really, really good goal. You can't concentrate for that.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the DM35 podcast. The season is done and we're all about to go on a break, but unfortunately, both Andrew and Polly have at least one more job to do before they can, I hope, at least get a fortnight away before the real business starts again. Andrew, a pleasure as always. As we mentioned, it's great to see Nut and a lay-by and in somewhere of comfort and it not getting slightly darker and darker until we can only see the glints of your eyes.
Exactly. I know. No, it's nice to be in one place for a change. So, thanks a lot for inviting us on. We really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you and talk to the fans.
And do you know what? We do say it, but it's you guys that reach out to us. Jack does the same, and everybody. So it's really appreciated that it's continued to be open and have an opportunity to talk to you about everything. And Polly, of course, welcome to the podcast. Thank you very much for joining us. We were already talking about how nice the office looks. I assume you're still hard at it and still at work by the looks of it.
Hi, Alex and guys. Yeah, it's still in the office. I am very jealous of your Blundell Park Road sign though. So I think I've got some levels to raise up to match your office as well. But nice to meet you all and good to speak.
Tickety Boo in Waltham is 20 quid. So I mean, I'll start off just by saying, obviously, apart from welcome, the season I would imagine exceeded expectations when you were going into this season and what had gone before it. Was there a goal that you'd set yourselves to attain? And if so, has that been matched and bettered? I'd like to think it had, but I'd prefer to ask.
I think when you go into a season, you're always going with a sense of hope, and I think if you're going into a league, your hope would be to get to the playoffs as a general target. But then there's probably 24 clubs who have the same aspiration. But if we're realistic and we look at where we were last year, fighting against the drop, finishing 21st. The outturn has been terrific. Obviously, didn't quite go that extra step. We just kind of faltered at the last few hurdles, I guess. But some fantastic progress to build on, and that's what we want to do. We want to continue to build and grow and move forward, and that's the plan for next season. But super foundations from this season, I think.
And I think from my perspective, I joined the club in June last year, and obviously I was watching a lot of the games from before then as well. And nobody wants to be in that relegation battle, let alone on the cusp of joining a club. So I think just to have steadied the ship a little bit, pardon the pun, and progressed, as Andrew said, since that finished last year. But we're not satisfied with that either. We really want to kick on and progress next season as well. So really looking forward to having much more, I suppose, a much more settled process and working relationships with David, with all of the staff ahead of next year to really kick on. So I think that mixed with a bit of growth mindset across the board, that is literally from Andrew, Jason, myself and David all the way across the club, that we're continually wanting to improve in everything that we do. So yeah, with a year under my belt, looking forward to kicking on again next year.
I mean, one thing I would say is that the communication between us all is fantastic. It's almost instantaneous. So again, that helps in terms of decision making. It helps in terms of moving things forward. David's very, very transparent in terms of his discussions with us. And again, it's a joy to kind of be involved with Polly, because again, she just like a swan, sort of effortless on the surface, but paddling like mad underneath, I'm sure. But no, it's been, for me, as again, it's been my first year as chair, and it's been great. And obviously, you're never satisfied. You always want better. We want to be champions in every league that we every season you go into. But yeah, I mean, good progress and lots to build on.
Did going into the season then as chair, has it really changed what had happened before? Obviously, you and Jason have quite a close working relationship from what we can see. Have you had to take on more? You still
A little bit more, but I'd say not a lot more. I mean, we divided up responsibility at the start, and then there were certain, we both got different strengths and different weaknesses, and so we tried to play to our strengths along the way. And so I've got more experience in things like property and finance and legal side of things, so I kind of focus on that and continue to do so. And Jason, very much on the strategy, the communications, building the culture, and he's continued to do that behind the scenes. Obviously less obviously because he's stepped back from the chair role, and also obviously had his political foray. So yeah, it's nice to have our vice chair back, and formally kind of back, not obviously under those circumstances, but no, it continues to we continue to work very, very well and very closely together.
We know you don't live in the area. We won't ask who you voted for, just to see if he comes back at the end of it.
I was very supportive of Jason's bid in lots of ways, and I really, I want him to succeed, because I think he would have been the right person to lead Lincolnshire. This is not a political podcast, but and I'm not personally a Labour politician, but I think this a Labour person, but this is beyond politics, I think, and the right person wasn't elected, but that's for a different discussion.
Yeah, absolutely. Polly, obviously new to the club in June, as you said. What were your first impressions, and what I nearly went into what sort of player are you interview, but what brought you to the club, and what did you find attractive in the role?
Yeah, so I've met Andrew and Jason and have various conversations really in the lead up to making that decision. And I just hit it off with them straight away. I really like their approach of using their business acumen and applying it in a really strategic way, not getting too flustered, a really calm approach. And I really understood the position and the place that the club was at. Full recognition that we're the only professional club in the town, knowing the importance that the badge has for the power of good in the community, trying to do outreach work to also bring people through the gates of Blundell Park, but primarily wanting to win on the pitch and being ambitious to climb through the leagues. And I think that blend of wanting to win and being competitive, aligned to my football background, wanting to use the power of the badge and working with, really great owners was another big tick in the box. But also bringing some of my business background as well. I think it was just a perfect blend of the types of people, the job at hand. My role at Manchester United hybrided the football and the business part, so it wasn't a big stretch in that perspective in terms of items that were new to me. I've worked in football for 20 years, but I think just having the opportunity to work full-time in the men's game whilst also having the remit covering the women's game and the academy and the business was a big opportunity for me. So pleased to say a year on, it's going really well, and looking forward to the future.
Hi, Polly, what would you say coming across from Man United to Grimsby, relocating and starting in your role at Grimsby, what would you say would be the most challenging thing you've come across over your sort of settling in period?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of demands for resource, whether that's on men's first team player budgets, on operating costs. But I think, and the infrastructure, of course, like Blundell Park is 125 years old, as we know. The training ground has some challenges with the pitches, has been well documented and well discussed throughout the season. So it's really a challenge to balance those competing priorities. And we're just trying to do that as openly and transparently as possible, both with the fans and staff, so that everybody understands the context of what we're operating under. So I think it's balancing those competing priorities, really. But I think as long as people understand rationale, and if you can't give everybody what they want, I think just some understanding or some rationale as to why helps to bring people along the way.
No, absolutely. And Andrew, for yourself, this obviously you're not new, you've been around here a while, but this season in particular, what's been the challenge that you've the biggest challenge you've faced this year?
I think a little bit of frustration around having made investments into the playing surfaces that they haven't. We've had a bit of bad luck around BP. Hopefully the moles will be found when we dig up the pitch this summer. Because we know we want to play progressive football, and it's sometimes that part's been a little bit frustrating. I think generally you're never satisfied. We probably haven't made as much commercial progress as I would like. I mean, we're making some good strides now. I think everyone will hopefully like the kits next year with a few different names on them, and look a bit more like the Italian style with where they have 2 or 3 different sponsors, and I like the kind of the differentiator there. Obviously, with My Energy still being the title sponsor. So no, I'd say that, the commercial side is something that we really want to engage more and get more engagement from the local business community, the fan base, and want to be welcome. I mean, I was just at a lunch today in London. Again, it's a farm business that we invest in, and the lad I was chatting to was a town fan. It was most bizarre. And his family of Lancashire farmers, and it was quite surreal. So we're massive, obviously, but as a in all seriousness, getting the engagement. And he was telling me a story about how one of his friends' families had sponsored the ball and had such a great time, and had gone into the club, and they really enjoyed their kind of that engagement. And we just want that to happen across the board as much as possible. And Polly and the team have got plenty of opportunities to help us generate that commercial income on top, because that we, as we said on many occasions, we want to get this club to a position where it's long-term sustainable, and it can survive without owner injections at the end of the day.
Well, that might be an interesting, or the convenient time to bring in a question from Steve Kendall, who wants to know, what increase have you seen in the commercial revenue since you first took over? How does that compare to where you thought or would have liked to have been, and how is that going to look in the future?
I think we probably won't comment on specific percentages, but as Andrew said, I think it's fair to say that it's not been as quick as we'd have liked. We've spent a good amount of time focusing on the football and the player recruitment. You'll be aware of our use of Jamestown Analytics on the player recruitment side, and we've been focusing a lot on the process to make sure that recruitment is as effective as possible. But as Andrew said, there's assets available that we're looking to commercialise, and we know there's assets on the table. So we're working really hard to try and realise some of those. And there's a varying degree of kind of traditional sponsors that we're going after, but also some creative options as well, whether that's the use of digital or experiences. So yeah, we're really looking forward to getting stuck into those, and hopefully, as Andrew said, that will help us balance out the books some more.
Go on, Sam. You asked in our little WhatsApp group what you wanted to ask Polly. I'm slightly worried given your Liverpool affiliation, so I might go on mute.
So I was just curious on the back of it. So I know you work, obviously, you'll probably answer Grimsby Town, but who do you actually support, Polly?
I think I might have been asked this at a fans forum, but I was born in Nottingham, so I grew up there supporting the red half.
I was kind of hoping you were going to say the ice hockey team. Let's go Panthers.
What's your reaction? That felt very quiet. So
That was perfect.
Right?
I was just expecting you to say Manchester United.
No.
The more awkward question was to ask Polly was, would she prefer to be working with Jim Radcliffe or Andrew? But I'm not sure we should really ask her that one at all.
Isn't that like asking me whether I like haddock or cod?
Andrew would absolutely let you go to the playoff final and give you tickets. Is there? So speaking of, I'm just having a quick look. Was there anything you wanted to ask Sam off the back of that while I have a quick look through the questions?
Yeah, I was just going to go sort of a different direction, really. I'm just sort of interested as to your views on the football governance bill that's been brought back and kind of it's been changed in Parliament recently. And just wondering if you still think that's a kind of force for good, despite that, because of course I know that's taken longer to get through and there've been changes to it owns the change of government. But what are your views on that at the moment?
It seems to be getting some momentum. It's in the committee stage now, and hoping that it's going to get royal assent at some point over the summer, before the summer recess, all being well. But then there's the next stage, which will be the appointment of the for the fan-led review, which will the football finance sort of analysis that'll be done. The chair will appoint a consulting firm to look into the state of football finances, and I'm sure come to the conclusion that a lot of the EFL clubs don't have a sustainable model, and that there needs to be there will need to be some reallocation, redistribution. But it's not a complete panacea. It's not going to be necessarily the answer. It will come with some strings. Some good, in my opinion, some good strings in the sense of protection of heritage assets, a focus on a tougher owners and directors test. I'm glad I got through before that got tougher. And then obviously the biggie, which is the acting as the arbiter between the EFL and the Premier League on distributions. And to be clear on that, I think it's got quite a good model so far. Anyway, it might get changed, over the next few weeks, but quite a good model in that both the Premier League and the EFL will put forward their idea, and then the regulator will choose one or the other. So actually, it won't be a compromise. It won't be a horse deal. It'll be one extreme or the other. But obviously, both parties are therefore incentivized to try and meet somewhere in the middle. Otherwise, they might end up with something that they didn't wish for. So if they're too unreasonable, so obviously we're looking forward to at least seeing the results of that. But there are strings attached. There'll be licensing regime that we'll have to go through. There'll be slightly tougher scrutiny on financing and business planning, which again, I think is good for the game, because our clubs are so, not just Grimsby, but all of the pretty much all of the EFL clubs. I'll exclude a few plastic clubs, but a few pretty much all of the EFL clubs are central to their community. So and that's why part of, as we've talked about before, part of identity of people like us as owners, but also right across the community, right across the right across the country. So it's not just Grimsby. It's Crewe. It's Sunderland. It's they're all hugely associated with their towns.
So, given what you said there about the sort of the political process and the sort of post-implementation, how long do you expect it to be before sort of the ramifications of the bill actually kind of become tangible, if you like? So, when are we like to actually see sort of a crackdown on profligate owners and things like that?
I'm not sure you're going to get a crackdown on profligate owners. I personally think that the strings attached by any deal will be they will not want the money to flow down to the particular Championship, but also League One and League Two, to flow down to player wages, and because that doesn't do anyone any good. It needs to go into infrastructure, perhaps into academies, perhaps into those areas. In terms of timing, I think I'm sure it'll be the Premier League will probably play the Putin long game of making it last as long as possible. So 18 months to 2 years would be my guess.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's great. I guess one of my questions is always around Blundell Park. It's an expensive job, more expensive than I think you thought when you were going to join originally, Andrew. And we can always get into the weeds of the safety advisory group and their eye for detail nowadays, which has not necessarily always been the case, in my opinion. Do you think, as sort of clubs, well, we're lucky enough now that Goodison Park is going to stay, but there aren't too many grounds like that, and we get quite a lot of compliments about Blundell Park. It was voted one of a journalist's favourite ground of the 92 he's visited. Do you believe that football should have a commitment to look after grounds like this, because they become exorbitantly expensive when you compare it to something, say, like Chesterfield or Colchester, who have facilities which don't necessarily need as much upkeep as often?
I'm not sure it's the central responsibility of football itself, but it should be recognised, and hopefully there'll be sympathy. And if there is some sort of pool of money available for infrastructure, then probably we should get our disproportionate share of that. I mean, there was in the mists of time a fund of money that was kindly put forward by the Premier League right at the outset, which we've now exhausted. And I'm sure there are clubs that haven't either exhausted it or needed to use it. So, getting access to more funds for older stadia does make sense. And as you say, the grand aim that is Blundell Park is a bit like the Forth Road Bridge. Once you finish, you then get onto the next out. I'm not going to comment on the safety advisory group. They do a great job.
They do.
I mean, at the end of the day, they're there to keep us all safe. And as I'm the director responsible for safety, I care deeply about it, and we won't cut corners on that side. And I won't. I say, and we'll continue our policy of not commenting on the prior proprietor.
Feel my wrist suitably slapped. Mike.
Yeah, I work in the industry, so I understand what buildings and safety and what an undertaking it is to actually keep things safe. But I noticed that we've actually started doing some of that work, I think, from the social media channels, Polly. And we've had a question from Mark Rowell about the disabled facilities. Is there any plans to improve those? What work has already gone on? What can you tell us, maybe even more broadly, about the work that's going to go on this summer?
Yeah, sure. So, as you've noticed, Tractor Watch, which is new to me, but I believe is a thing. So I know that Tractor Watch is live and kicking already this season. Because work has started both here at Blundell Park and the training ground on the pitches. And we've also started steel work for in the rest of the main stand and into the Osmond as well. So again, to Andrew's point about safety advisory group, a critical piece of work to maintain the safety of those stands. So that's up and running already. In terms of disabled access, we're in long discussions with the Disabled Supporters Association about the viewing experience of disabled fans that are currently in the main stand towards the Osmond. And we're really looking at different options to improve their viewing experience. So we're well on with that, and we're exploring different options and the costs associated to those. I think the other part that comes with that is around parking. We recognise that parking is an issue for everybody. We're obviously not blessed with space as we're hemmed in, which is one of the unique characteristics of the ground, but also logistically does provide some challenges. So we've been speaking to local businesses to assess the possibility of either utilising additional car parking around the footprint of the stadium, or perhaps a park and ride type scheme. So we're exploring options to see what we can do to support. And I think once we've got an idea of the funding required for the disabled supporters, that might be the type of thing that we look to engage with the Mariners Trust or the supporter base, potentially around some crowdfunding, just to see if there's elements that we can enhance their experience, because they're a key part, obviously, of our fan base and things that we want to improve. So, we're looking into it, and we're in good dialogue with the Supporters Association. We obviously opened the sensory room earlier this season as well, so that was a great addition for people who might need that as a bit of a quiet space when things get a bit too much. So we're great relationship with the DSA, and we'll keep developing those services for the fans that need them.
And we hope the fans will really enjoy the top tier of the main stand that we're going to build this summer as well. Second tier, but no, Polly makes a good point about kind of fan engagement, and that's something that we really want to focus on in the context not just of facilities, but also the overall match day experience. Again, those of us that were at the Wimbledon game, it was one of the best atmospheres for quite a few years, particularly in the first half. I know. Again, having listened to some previous podcasts, there are mixed views on the haddocks and the quality of the haddocks and the authenticity of the haddocks. But actually, I think they added an awful lot to the mix. And we have one of our investors to thank for sort of one generously sponsoring that part of the day's experience. So yeah, I think I would certainly encourage fans to come forward to the trust, and if they want to come forward to us, but ideally go through the trust to come up with ideas for making Blundell Park into a fortress again. If our home record had matched our away record, we would have been in the playoffs. So we need to improve and make Blundell Park, dare I say it, hostile, but without being unwelcoming to families. But opponents need to come to the ground and not look forward to it.
Can we not just make it hostile by taking the away team's parking away, and we fix two issues there at once? make them drive up and down Grimsby Road trying to find a parking space for half an hour.
Exactly.
We want to do that for the away team bus. So
yeah.
I wouldn't worry about the opinions on the Harry Haddocks. It was just Bruce's opinion, Andrew, and none of us listened to Bruce's opinion.
No, actually, you're right about that.
Yeah.
They do look like they've been at a rave.
Yeah.
Happy fish. Happy fish.
Big fish, little fish, cardboard box.
Well, if you want to design a new one for next season, then and you be our guest. We'll kind of create an annual Harry Haddock as well as.
Could you imagine the chaos of that?
Yeah, I couldn't. I wouldn't let Bruce design it anyway. Put it that way.
That's a good idea, Mike. I'll go over to you. I've ruined what could have been an important question.
No, so I was listening to your recent interview this week on Radio Humberside, Andrew, and you were speaking about the value that the new ownership group, the new investors last year have brought in, and not just in terms of money, but in terms of tangible doing things and taking an active role. So if you could speak about that a little bit and tell us how that's been, your first sort of year working with them, but also with the American shareholders, obviously, are they now taking an active role? And if they are, when is the point where a decision is made about letting fans know who they are? Because I know there was obviously a getting to know you period and not wanting to commit to that, but is there going to be a point when that maybe becomes sort of open to the fans?
Well, just answering the two questions, we gave all of the investors the opportunity to either go public or remain anonymous. I think eventually the names will no doubt emerge. Particularly, those eagle-eyed on Company's House will kind of see that come through. So I think they will come out a little bit over time. But again, people, each of the investors made their own choice around that. In terms of specifically the help, again, they're all experienced and successful business people, and major passionate sports fans. most of them with a direct connection to the town. So have connections, have contacts, have a lot of experience, and again, without any particular choice, have actually quite a variety of different backgrounds. One's in finance, was more kind of corporate person, one's more a tech person. So quite a nice mix of skills, and they've all been great in terms of putting themselves forward to spend more time. I think we'll see the Americans a bit more next season, because some of them are talking about coming and living in the UK for a little while. So I'm sure we'll see them at the ground a bit more, which would be great. So yeah, we are looking to expand further the investor base in the club, and that process is sort of getting underway. And we've got some, dare I say, some maybe some dreamlike, but some fairly ambitious plans to widen the investor base, to put the club even more on the map than it already is. So kind of watch this space. If they come off, then hopefully that will be an enhanced experience for all of us.
I mean, that's something to look forward to. Polly, when you came on board, sorry, I keep going back. This is David Frost has nothing to worry about. When you first came on board at Town, were there any sort of quick wins you could get your hands on straight away? Were there things, given your fresh eyes and your experience elsewhere, that you go, actually, that's a pretty easy thing we can fix almost immediately? That would be good to go for. And is there any more long-standing ones that when you walk in the club on a Monday morning, you go, it just gnaws at you in the back of the head, going, I'd really like to get that fixed next week if we can get it sorted?
I think obviously I joined during the transfer window, so it was a good opportunity to observe how that was operating, and quite quickly I saw some things that I wanted to tighten up. We did a transfer window review in September last year, and that really helped then set us up for January and then this summer window as well. So I think that was a really good time to join, even though I couldn't affect it as much for the summer. Set us up well for January and this summer. I think some of the strategic bits as well. I think obviously the men's team had just finished 21st, the women's team had got relegated, so maybe just a bit of reassurance was required amongst the staff in terms of the direction of travel. So I think just giving staff the clarity that, no, we are here to climb through the leagues, we are ambitious, we do want to grow, we're not happy with those results for either of our first teams. So I think just bringing some of that structure and strategy and thinking, well, how are we going to address that? What are we going to do to move forwards? And what does that look like for each individual department? Were a couple of the bits that I got to straight away. In terms of longer term projects, we've spoken about the commercial side, so there's definitely more to go at from that perspective. And I think it's really about trying to be really smart with our operating costs. Are there opportunities to save money or to spend more effectively? I've really enjoyed working with the Jamestown guys. That's been a great experience, and they've added a lot of value to what we're doing, and I think gives us a bit of competitive advantage as well. So that's been enjoyable. I think that they're probably the main bits. I think what I'm most keen to do next season, and again, Andrew's spoken about it in terms of the match day experience, is how we make Blundell Park, how we reflect the fan base and how we show up in a unique way. So it's not just a copy and paste of, well, this club does that, so we should do it here. Like, what elements of the match day experience can we do that are unique to us? Like the Harry the Haddocks, were perfect for me in terms of, that's something that's so unique to the club. I'd like to do more of that. So we've got, a meeting with the Mariners Trust today, and, we'll continue to do that amongst the staff side. But I really want to improve that consultation between the club and the fans through the Mariners Trust to bring more ideas of that to life, because I do want us to, for that passion to translate onto the pitch and vice versa, to make sure that it does give us that home advantage that we're all looking for.
And is there? I feel like when you guys come on this, it's a question of what are we fixing, what are we doing here? When you came to the club, what are the things that the club do really well that you were surprised with? How, sort of Jamestown aside, what were the other things that the club have got nailed down that you think actually they've got that spot on? That's quite impressive.
So on the staffing side, we're blessed with people that have been here 40 years and those that have been here 6 months. And I think it's a really nice blend of those that know the club inside out and some really fresh ideas, straight out of university or from different industry. And it's been blending those two things together. I think also taking my experience from football and other clubs and meshing that in with the local context. So, I'm not naive enough to think that I know everything about Grimsby Town. I don't. I know a bit about football and a bit about business, and it's been blending that with the local context and the knowledge and experience of the staff and ideas from fans and stakeholders. So I think that blend has helped us to move the dial in various different areas, like the retail, for example. The design of the shirt this year was brilliant. Such a fresh idea, bringing in some of the concepts from Umbro and a retro fit. And I can't wait to launch next season's shirt as well, because that will be a similar new and a bespoke design that is very Grimsby. And again, that's what I'm really keen to do, is that whatever we do is right for the club, and that fans new and old can buy into it.
We'll put you in touch with Bruce if you want to know more about the history of the club, but we'll do it in short bursts because that's the safest way of doing it. In 1956, Sam, sorry, I'll pass over to you.
Yeah, the history. We'll leave Bruce to do the history lessons. Yeah, I've got a sort of, maybe a slightly more tricky question on the grounds that you've removed the discount for Mariners Trust members on season tickets. I'm just kind of interested. It's a little bit of a self-indulgent question, to be honest with you, because it means if I were to renew my season ticket, it would make it significantly more expensive than it was on top of the other increase, which I understand because of the cost of living and the price of everything goes up every year. But I'm just wondering, what's the rationale for removing that perk of being a Mariners Trust member?
Yeah, so the 5% discount, we were the only club in the league to offer a discount on top of another discount. So just trying to look at that in terms of the commercial aspects that we've spoken about, and also benchmarking with other clubs. As we know, a season ticket is a discount off 23 home matches already. And I'm confident in the packages and the offers that we're putting together, that they are the most affordable option for fans to watch football. In terms of some of the spend of that money through the Mariners Trust, it was going to community organisations, and the club's community organisation is the foundation. So there's a bit of duplication there as well. And I think in my discussions with the Trust, it was really about just stripping back to what was the core purpose of the Trust and why was it set up in the first place. And it's to be a voice of the fan. And I think it had stepped into a delivery arm of the club. And actually, we're in a better place structurally now to be delivering some of the benefits that fans got through the membership. So those benefits will still exist in a new 1878 membership scheme. So things like access to a junior press conference, a Christmas party, they will still exist, and fans will still get those benefits. They'll just be delivered by the club rather than through the Mariners Trust. So a couple of reasons. One was the commercial element, that no other club was offering a discount off a season ticket. And then secondly, the operational part. Fans won't lose out on those benefits. They'll just be delivered by the club rather than the Trust.
Okay. Thank you very much. That's a good.
Are you going to get your season ticket now, Sam? Or was that? Or do you need that 5%?
No, I don't need that.
Need to chip in.
So I've explained this on the record before, that it was Umdenard last season. Sort of got. I got umdenard last year about it. Got sort of, my auntie cajoled me into renewing my season ticket, but this year, because it's just a practical thing, But it was just as the only one of us three who has been a season ticket holder this season, I'd like to point out that
in your defence, you are in London.
It's a long way to Bordeaux, mate. You ought to try doing that.
Yeah, exactly. It's a long way to Bordeaux.
Just
there
off
isn't any direct flight.
What I'd say is, I think for those fans that aren't based within the area, do look out for the 1878 membership, because I think there'll be some benefits in there that really talk to those people that can't get to Blundell Park every other week. So have a look out for that when that comes out in June.
Speaking of being creative, though, given how many away games there are in the southeast, you should just do an away season ticket. We've got 11 home games to go to next year. Mike, pass over to you.
Yeah, just Bill Gus was talking about the Mariners Trust. We had a few questions around this, and particularly from Simon Parks asked a few about what the relationship is like with the Mariners Trust now. And something I would sort of like to ask is, are you, Andrew and Jason, are you still committed to having a fan representative from the trust on the board as long as you guys are the sort of majority shareholders? Is that something you're still committed to?
Yes. And it not just us, it's actually built into the articles of the company. So what's one thing we specifically changed in the articles of the company last year was to embed the right of the Mariners Trust to have a representative on the board of the club. And so in terms of removing it, would mean a new owner would have to actually change the constitution of the club to go out of their way to remove that right. And I know we're very bought into the idea of engaging with the we're fans ourselves, but we recognise that we have a little bit of a conflict of interest in certain respects. So it's hearing the voice of the fans via representative. Christine and Dave before have been fantastic voices for the club and bring lots of thoughts and ideas to the boardroom. And Christine yesterday was addressing a Football Supporters Association panel, and she was on a panel with a rep from Man U and a rep from Everton. So that's how well regarded Christine is within the footballing community. So no, we're very lucky to have had the representatives that we've had to date and again, we want to continue to get those rich ideas from the trust, because that's where the authenticity comes from.
Fantastic. Andrew listens too much, and Polly, thankfully, doesn't get to the point where she listens to Bruce's games, which is probably best for everybody. I talk rather nerdly about direct debit options, given what I do for a role. Is there a reason we see clubs take it up, and it's sort of sporadic? Tranmere are doing it this year, Bradford do it all the time, and Blackburn and the like. Is there a reason we don't look at that option? Is it just too much admin work? Are you worried about people committing, or is there another reason why, given the cost of living crisis, Blundell Park season tickets at Grimsby Town have always been sort of slightly above average for a league going back to the 90s? Those sort of options could help people. Is there a reason why we don't do that?
Yeah, so at the moment there's over 90% of fans that pay in a one-off payment. So it's less than 10% that pay in instalments, and we have 3 instalments set up this season as we did last year as well. So there are some some flexible options. We have looked into spreading a direct debit out across the length of the season, but as circumstances change for individuals, or let's say worst case scenario, the performance drops off, it does provide a bit of a risk for the club on a commercial perspective should those direct debits stop, and then we have to cancel the membership. So we have looked at it, but it is quite a small percentage of people that we know of that at the moment utilise that function. We're always open to continually reviewing it, and if that becomes the norm across other clubs, it might be something that we consider a bit more thoroughly, but it is a very small percentage at the moment that do take up that option.
Well, always happy to have a chat on it. Some of the figures for us 35% of our organisations that stay with us, it is a 35% increase on direct debit payments instead of backs. And we've seen DD requests go from something along 6% up to 28% in the last 4 years. So obviously different. We're talking about organisations here rather than people, but they're stats. And if anybody ever wants to have a chat about what we do and how we do it, it can be a pain in the arse. It can be. It is a one-to-one, but given the things that people go through, rather unfortunately, it's an area of low cost. So anything like that can help, and I'm always happy to support on that. Just to shut me up more than anything from everybody who's listening.
Always happy to have a chat, Alex. So
yeah, God, yeah, you're probably not. Mike, over to you. I've asked my question. Apart from when can we get safe standing, and Andrew saying no, I can't. We're not welding pipes to the ground.
Well, I was going to ask about Andrew. Obviously, we've listened again. I listened to your interview on Humberside, and you were talking about learning lessons about the transfer window. So I'd be interested to know about what those lessons are. And I don't think it's particularly groundbreaking for somebody to say we probably suffered a lot from injuries last year and too much money off the pitch too often. Is that something you're looking at with Jamestown this year about trying to, when we've got to be more efficient with our spend, trying to get more sort of money on the pitch as we go? And is that something you're going to be looking at going into the summer, trying to make sure we're getting players that have not got that risk?
Yeah, look, it's very much part of our due diligence process when we're looking at players is looking at their injury records, and as Polly said, we've sort of systemized, if you like, dossiers on players that we're looking at now to include a whole array of different elements, right from their social media presence through to injury record, through to references, etc., etc. So I think Polly's influence and David's and Joe have been very much part of this as well. We have improved materially the sort of processes for looking at players. I think we did take a bit of a calculated risk last year with 2 or 3 players that did join us with injury or hadn't had a full pre-season. I think our willingness to do that might have helped us get those players, and that was part of the kind of the risk we took, if you like. But I think it's fair to say, again, injuries really have hurt us this year. We had a period where we had hardly any midfielders, had a period where we had one fit striker, and so that we don't want that to happen again if we can avoid it. But it's football, isn't it? So you never quite know. You never quite know what's around the corner in terms of injuries. We do want to bring in players that are capable, and I think we have done, are capable of playing in multiple positions, which will make the efficiency of spend on the first team squad better. And again, this is the first transfer window where we have been able to have free reign with Jamestown without sort of historic contracts that we were tied to. So from that perspective, it's been you want to have a policy of constant improvement. But I think the injury side is definitely something that we're looking at. Other lessons learnt. I think for me that was what I was alluding to in the Humberside interview, was the sort of taking that calculated risk on loan players. I think we've also learned that David and the team have a real passion and quality in improving players, and so whilst you want to get quality from the leagues above in terms of loan players, you actually, as a matter of practice, would rather improve your own players that we own and that are assets of the club, than necessarily take a Justin Abiku, who again unfortunately was injured for a lot of the season. I think if even him alone, if he'd have been fit for the whole season, we probably would have made the playoffs or beyond, because his quality was there for all to see. But ultimately, over the last season and a half, we've improved a player for Coventry basically, and so there'll be a mix of those. I'm sure there will still be a few loan players that come in, but we will want to make sure we balance the pre-season loads and make sure, again, it's no coincidence that, say, someone like Doug, who had a shoulder operation over the summer last year, didn't play the whole season. So you want to get as many of the players through the pre-season and through and no two things are the same in terms of pre-season either. Some players will remain super fit over the summer and will need 2 or 3 weeks to get back up to speed. Others might need 2 months. It's and again, part of the job of David and his team will be to sort of to calibrate that between the different players and people and bodies and circumstances of all the squad.
Are you finding, given the highlights of things such as Jamestown and being only us and Brighton in the UK using them, or in England using them, do you find clubs now coming to you asking for advice, or there are, for example, scouts that now just follow Brighton scouts around? Have we got a couple of people that follow around, or are you being asked about your advice on things, or are clubs keeping themselves to themselves?
I mean, I probably maybe knows different, but from my standpoint, I don't think so. But I mean, it's one of the reasons we were concerned about the Humberside interview with Giza was the fact that might have, if people were following us and we hadn't actually secured his signature at the time, that might might put that deal at risk. So I'm sure people are looking carefully where Grimsby get linked. But the fortunate thing about social media is that there's loads of bullshit in there. So lots of people
You're
can get
welcome.
thrown off. No, present company accepted. But that is, lots of people can get thrown off the trail by saying, "Oh, Grimsby are chasing this player," when we know for a fact that that's not the case.
Was playing Brighton in the quarterfinals the best thing that happened to the club for the future? Because how much charming did you do in that corporate box during the game?
We asked Tony Bloom if he'd share the data with us, and he said no. So I'm not quite sure how much that worked. But anyway, he obviously remembered the conversation and maybe did a bit more background check on what we were trying to do, and thought we were good candidates to work with. And as Polly said, they're great. They're great to work with, and we're very lucky to have that relationship, and hopefully it's mutually fruitful.
Yeah, I think just to build on that I'm not certainly facing any questions at the moment in terms of who we're in for, but I think it could potentially be a risk in the future that if it is understood or known that we are in for particular players, and I know this from my time at Brighton, is that it almost saves other clubs some scouting work. I'll just follow where the Brighton scouts are. That we don't want that to happen to us. It could be a risk, which is why it's really important that we do keep names under a hat, and we won't speculate on who we're interested in for that reason.
So when we find there's cardboard over that glass window behind you, we know you've got a person of interest in there. Is that what it is?
No comment.
Sorry, Mike.
Have you taught David and Joe Hutchinson how to lose a tail then? Those sorts of things.
Yeah, there lots of sort of security service tips have been offered in terms of how to dodge someone following them.
In terms of the transfer, you was talking about the sorry.
No, it was just a funny joke. It's not very easy to lose someone around a football pitch. Just got this idea of him running around it being followed by someone.
Yeah, you're talking about loans and a Bikru, and I think all the loans gave different things this year. But I was really impressed with Bikru, and it was just unfortunate he didn't get as much time on the pitch. But I would imagine having somebody like David Artell, who has got that history of improving players, and the style he's trying to develop, is pretty important to try and get these bigger teams to let their more the better younger players out on loan to us. And have you seen an increase in that with teams maybe looking at us instead of other ones in the division, maybe because of those factors?
Yeah, I think the proof's in the pudding with the minutes that we gave those players. We can absolutely evidence that to loaning clubs that we have played loan players. Obviously, they have to be good enough. They have to be fit. They have to be the right cultural fit as well to make sure that they blend in with the team. But because we've now got form with that, it helps us with our negotiations with clubs for future windows. So yeah, it's a good weapon for us to be able to utilise. And I think, as Andrew said, we took injured players because we had the foresight to know that actually we might be able to keep these for a full season rather than just 6 months. I think clearly one of the risks of taking loan players is that they could have a recall in January. So we were scenario planning up until and during January to know that when the recall date came, we'd be ready for alternative options. I mean, you look at Walsall and what happened to them this year with the striker being recalled back to Stoke without a backup. That's the risk, which is why the scenario planning around loan players is really important. But we were fortunate to have kept them and been in good contact and good relationships with the parent club to make sure that we kept them, because, again, to Andrew's point, we were adding value to the asset. It needs to work both ways. They need to be performing for us as well. But I think being ready if we have to, if they do get recalled, is really important.
So the women's team obviously were relegated this season, sadly. Last season, sorry, yeah, of course. What are the plans being put in place for this season to prepare them both on and off the pitch? Have things changed in a direction? How would you say the state of the health of the women's team within Grimsby Town is?
Yeah, women's team were relegated 23-24, and then 24-25 they finished third in their division. We've done a huge amount to integrate them into the club more and make them feel like they belong, because they are a key part of what we do. And our vision is to climb through the leagues, and that's S because it applies to the men's and the women's team. There's such simple things to help them feel like they belong, like they've had their names on the back of the shirts for the first time. We've provided them transport to away games. They played at Blundell Park twice, and the second time in front of a record crowd. We'll continue to develop those services for them so they can professionalise. In Tier 6, it is amateur, but we want to be the most professional outfit in an amateur division. We should have the best players from the region playing for us. And that's the ambition really for next year, is that they actually replicate a lot of the processes from the men's first team in terms of things like recruitment, medical services, those types of things. We've also been able to generate some commercial revenue. So we've had player sponsorships for the first time. We also use player appearances as an opportunity to raise the profile. So often men's and women's players will be going to appearances to show local children that you can be a footballer, whether you're male or female, because they're both excellent role models. So that will continue. We're just revising the staffing structure at the moment, so there'll be a new head coach in for next year. So they're a key part of what we do, and hopefully next year they'll get their promotion back to Tier 5.
Fantastic. Mike, ask Richard's question, because Youngie sent us the most important question he's sent in, apparently.
Yeah, the DN35 service station correspondent would like to ask you both, which is your favourite service station, seeing as you travel around following town all the time? The man is insane, but he told me to ask.
Oh my God.
Service station, not lay-by, Andrew. Service station.
Yeah, I only know lay-bys, but occasionally, no, I think Weatherby Services, as it's close to home.
You're not stopping at a service station near your house, are you?
I just go and...
That's the answer of a madman.
Exactly. They've got a Burger King.
I've got a young child, so I'm going Doncaster, because by the time we get there, he needs a wee. So the closest one, all of them, exactly. Yeah.
I don't get a chance to get to M25 before mine needs to go to the toilet.
M25 is terrible because you're getting on. But you're getting on after Cobham, so there's no way, unless you do an entire route round. What are you going? South Mims is the next one.
You're going a bit Bruce here now, mate.
Yeah, sorry. Do you want me to stick the Last of the Summer Wine theme tune on?
And I've got one last question from Charles Lindenberg. He wants to know, Andrew, how far is your plane journey at the weekend, and where are you flying from? He's obviously trying to work out where you're going.
Or how many Avios points will it get you?
Yeah, I'm in the process of booking my flight at the moment, so I'm not quite sure which airport, but it'll be London somewhere.
It'll be the most watched plane on Flight Tracker. You know, as you want.
Pettit watch.
This is a bit more sophisticated than that Robbie Fowler being spotted at Millfields. We've got the world since then.
Yeah.
What was before we let you go? What was your proudest moment of the season, and what was the story that you can't believe happened this season? We go, that came out of the blue. What the sort of a little peek behind the curtain?
I think for me the proudest moment was that going to places like Doncaster and Walsall and winning, you know, when they were flying high in the league, and we just took it to them, and we did the same with Port Vale and nearly got it over the line as well. So I think that for me, and again seeing the away fans, you know, showing up in such numbers. I mean, Doncaster was obviously the closest, but you know, places as far afield as even as Barrow or Wimbledon, and you've got you know, just an amazing following, and it always gets to me. I would say, in terms of the sheer passion of particularly the away fans, but we know that the home fans, it's in fact the same passion. It's just they're perhaps a little bit more disparately within the stadium, and they're mixed with a few cynics who quite rightly are you know, entitled to their views, but you know, that sort of unifying passion, and seeing the relationship between the players and the away fans at MK Dons as well, you know, was also real. You know, you felt the connection.
Was there a few players there going, actually, I can't give away my blue shirt. We might have to use it in the playoffs.
Maybe, yeah.
I think, I was also going to say Doncaster away, which was limbs, as they say, and Wimbledon at home again, seeing the Harry Haddocks. I think, was it Salford away where we got absolutely peppered and still came away with a result? That was a good one. But I think just being with Dave Moore towards the end of his tenure was really special as well, and seeing all of the outpouring of love and admiration for someone that spent, you know, a huge amount of time at the club. It was quite a fitting send off. I felt I got quite emotional seeing the guard of honour for Dave come out at the Wimbledon game, and we'll do something for Dave before the start of next season. There's like an evening with, if you like. So, you know, there's more of that to come, but I think that was a special moment to share that with him.
And everybody will have to show up in shorts.
Yeah.
It's done in January 16th, is it?
It was Salford. It was Salford because Doug Thar made 25 headed clearances.
What a nerd.
What's worse, either he's looked that up just now on the back of that, or he knew that.
He knew it.
One of those
I
things.
knew it.
Yeah, you don't even need Jamestown, especially for Doug Thumb with Mike. Thank you both for taking the time and spending it longer. It's been an incredible season, whichever way you look at it, and we look forward to seeing what you've all got planned for us in the summer. But we hope you get a well rested and deserved break in the next couple of weeks.
Thanks, guys. Good to speak to you.
Yeah, thanks a lot, and look forward to listening to you over the close season. I know it'll be a bit more sporadic, but again. I know we said this to you before, but you know, you guys do a great job for the promoting the club, and it's fantastic. And we also appreciate the challenge that sometimes comes across from some of the comments. So we do listen to you. So thanks for all the hard work.
John, come and play your calendars right.
I'm not sure I go that far. I don't think I want to show my ignorance by doing that.
Brilliant. Thank you both.